Okay, continuing with triangles, we're going to talk about the angles and sides of triangles, and a lot of this will probably be review, but it's pretty important to other stuff we do in this class. So first, this is something I'm sure you've learned before, that the three angles of a triangle always add up to 180 degrees. So just really quick as a review of that, let's say this top angle up here is 80 degrees. Say this angle down here is 70 degrees. If we need to find the third angle, all we have to do is add up the two angles we know and then subtract that total from 180. That will tell us that the missing angle is 30 degrees. Just one thing to say really quick while we're here. When you have a triangle, and this is just a good thing to keep in mind when you're doing more complicated problems and you just want a quick way to check your work and see if your answer is reasonable. Remember that a triangle can only have one right angle or one obtuse angle. You cannot have two right angles. You cannot have two obtuse angles. You cannot have a right angle and an obtuse angle. You can only have one or the other. Everything else has to be acute. So when you're working out problems with triangles, maybe you're solving for x, plug stuff back in and see if it makes sense. See if you get three angles that still add up to 180, or make sure you don't have two right angles or two obtuse angles. Just, even though it's something you've learned, keep it in mind as a way to check over your work when you do certain problems. All right, next one, you may have learned this too, but this is a little less familiar. This is the triangle inequality theorem. And this says if you add together any two sides of a triangle, the sum, the total you get, has to be bigger than the length of the third side. So let's go, let's just put some side lengths up here. Let's say the bottom of my triangle is, let's say this is 23. Let's say the top up here is 21. And then let's say the side over here is 15. If I take any two of these numbers and add them together, the answer I get has to be bigger than the third number, or this is not an actual triangle and this is not real. So some of this is obvious. If I add 23 plus 15, I know it has to be bigger than 21 because 23 is already bigger than 21. Same thing if I add 23 plus 21, that's pretty obviously bigger than 15. So if you're given three sides and you have to check, do these sides make a triangle? The quick way to do that is to take the two small sides, in this case 15 and 21, add those together, and make sure you get a number that's bigger than the number on the third side. So 15 and 21, that's 36, which is indeed bigger than 23. So one quick note, notice I use just regular old greater than signs. This is not greater than or equal to. So one thing that cannot happen when you are making a triangle is you cannot have a situation. Let's change these numbers a little bit. Let's say let's make this 17 and let's make this 6. If I added together the 17 and the 6, I would get exactly 23. So that will not make a triangle. That's not going to work. So they have to be greater than the third side. They can't be equal to them. And let me just show you a quick demonstration here. Right here, I have a triangle. And I made this triangle, so the bottom was 7. And then these two sides that are not coming together yet are 2.5 and 4.5. And if you add 2.5 and 4.5 together, you get exactly 7. So let's look at what happens with these when I start moving them around. And I'm going to go to just exit out of the presentation to do this. So here, if I want to try to bring these two sides together, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to lower them. I'm going to have to bring them down a little bit. So I'll bring that one down, bring this one down, and they're getting closer together now. They still don't make a triangle. There's still that gap in the top. So I'm going to try to get them a little closer by bringing them down a little further. Let's bring this one down. And they do get a lot closer, but there's still that little gap. And as I continue bringing them down, what's going to happen, and I actually moved that a little bit to the right that time. Oops, I messed this up a little bit. That was right there. As I move this down and move this down, they continue to get closer together, but ultimately what's going to happen is when they actually end up touching, they are going to just be, this is really hard to do without accidentally clicking on something else. When they actually do come together, what they're going to give you is a flat line. Well, I'm going to leave it at that. You can see what's happening. When those two sides come all the way down, they're going to make a flat line by the time they finally touch. So you won't have a triangle anymore. You'll just have two flat lines on top of each other. So that's why it won't work if the two smaller sides are equal to the third side. They have to be bigger. So let's get back into the actual presentation here. And it says determine whether each set of side or angle measurements will make a triangle. So this is one type of problem you'll have to do in this next assignment. And for the side problems, what you want to do is you want to identify the two shortest sides they give you. So on the first one, that's 3 and 11. You add those together. And what you want to do is see if the number you get is bigger than the third number. So I got 14. That is not bigger than 15. I'm sorry. That is not bigger than 15. So my answer is no. These do not make a triangle. The two small sides are not bigger than the third side. For angles, all you want to do is add together your three numbers and see if they give you 180. And if they do, it's a yes. If they do not, it's a no. So I'm going to add these together, carry my 1. So far, so good. I got a couple zeros, carry my 2. And I get 2 plus 5 plus 8. That is 15 plus 3 is 18. So it works out. I get 180 degrees exactly. So number 2 is a yes. All right, number 3, I have 3 sides. I've got 27, 31, and 6. I take the two small, the 27 and the 6. I add those together. So 27 plus 6 gives me 33. 33 is bigger than 31. So that's a yes. It worked that time. So if the two smaller ones are bigger than the other one, it's a yes. Number 4, I don't even need to add these up because what I see right away is I have two obtuse angles. I have two angles that are bigger than 90. That is impossible in a triangle. So without even doing any work, I know this is a no. So that's a no. And then my final one, I have sides. I've got these two sides here, 6.4 and 3.8. I'm going to add those together and see if they are indeed bigger than 10.2. So I'm going to add those up. Carry the 1, and when I do that, I get exactly 10.2. And remember, if it's exact, if they're equal to each other, that's a no. They do not make a triangle because they would just collapse on themselves. So that is a no. So that's one type of problem you'll get where you're taking the information you know and you determine yes or no, would this make a triangle? One other type of problem you'll get is something like this. It's going to ask you to find like a range of values. So here it gives you two sides of a triangle, 11 and 13. And it says to find all possible values for that third side. And we're going to call the third side x. So what could x be to make this triangle work? And one thing in geometry, never assume things are drawn to scale. So even though this looks like the shortest side of the triangle, we're not going to assume that. What we know, the only thing we know going into this, is that if whatever x is, if you add it to any other side, you have to get a number bigger than the third number. You also know that if you add together 11 and 13, you have to get a number that's bigger than x. That's what we're working with. So to figure out what x could be, there's two things you do. The first thing you do is you take the two numbers you know and you subtract them. Just big minus little. 13 minus 11, you get 2. What that means is x has to be bigger than 2. If x is not bigger than 2, x plus 11 would not be bigger than 13. So x has to be greater than 2. Now you want to add the two numbers. We're going to take 13 plus 11. We get 24. Here, x has to be smaller than 24. If x is bigger than 24, when you add 11 and 13, it won't be big enough to be bigger than the x. So x has to be less than 24. So the way you would write this is you would put x in the middle, in between 2 and 24, and then you use these greater than, less than symbols. And again, you just use like greater than. You don't use greater than or equal to. X cannot be equal to 2. It cannot be equal to 24. It has to be bigger than 2 and less than 24 for it to work and for it to be a part of this triangle. So that's what you need to know about the sides and angles of triangles and their relationships. So good luck on the assignment.